Hey everyone, I found another book. Remember yesterday we finished reading Tara and Bella about the elephant and the dog. And before I read you a story about Owen and Maisie, the hippo and the tortoise. Well, I found another one. I actually have two more. This one is called, well, it's about a polar bear. Do you see it? And if you look at this, you might not know how to say it the right way, but I looked inside to find out how to say it the right way, and it's Knut. Knut. And it says how one little polar bear captivated the world. Look at how cute he is. And it's a real life story. So Knut is a real life polar bear. All right. Let's find out. It says this one is from the author of Owen and Maisie. So whoever wrote Owen and Maisie wrote this story too. Look at him. Isn't he the cutest little thing? Knut. All right. Let's find out all about. This is where I found out how to say it. It tells me right here. This is the word, and it says how to say it. Knut. All right. I'm going to read the story about Knut. One December afternoon, in a cozy, dark enclosure in a zoo in Berlin, Germany, a polar bear cub was born. He was so small that a child could easily have cradled him. His eyes were closed tight, and his pink skin showed through his fine white fur. He was just a tiny polar bear cub, but he would soon be loved by millions of people around the world. His name is Knut, and this is his story. Knut, pronounced Knut, was born on December 5th, 2006, at the zoo in Berlin, one of the world's largest and most respected zoos. Thomas Dorfling, the chief bear keeper, and Andre Schuli, one of the veterinarians, were on hand when Knut's mother, Tosca, gave birth to two healthy cub brothers. But Thomas and Andre were anxious. Wild animal mothers don't always know how to take care of their babies. If Tosca wasn't able to be the cub's mother, Thomas and Andre would have to try to hand raise them. Thomas and Andre watched Tosca carefully, but she showed little interest in those cubs. So after 5 hours, Thomas carefully gathered them up and rushed them to the small room that would be their first home. The cubs were placed in an incubator. It's a small heated bed. As they hungrily drank for their first meal from baby bottles, a new life began for Thomas. He was to devote the next few months to being an around-the-clock foster father. Look at that. He is so cute. The cubs were not given names at first because it was not unusual for newborn animals to survive only a few days. And unfortunately, on the fourth day, one of the cubs suddenly developed a high fever, and within hours he died. It was very sad. But Thomas and Andre knew that they had done all that they could. Now they had to focus all their care on the remaining baby. Andre checked on that cub several times a day, but it was Thomas who saw to the cub's every need. The cub could drink only about 4 tablespoons of formula milk at a time. After just 2 hours, he would yelp in hunger again. Day and night, Thomas would boil water, mix the formula, give the cub his bottle, and settle him back down in the incubator. He also had to clean the cub's bedding and sterilize the bottles. Thomas napped whenever he could. It was an exhausting routine, but Thomas was determined to give this cub the best possible chance of survival. He even moved a bed and a sleeping bag into the cub's room so that he could always be nearby. So he's like this cub's mom. He's taking care of it all the time. because the real mom didn't want to take care of it. Somebody has to take care of it. Week after week, the cub's fur grew in more thickly, his tummy got plumper, and his body got stronger. With his bright black eyes, he looked around at everything until the cub was 4 weeks old. Thomas continued to feed him every 2 hours. He also bathed him, brushed him, and rubbed him with baby oil every day. He even played Elvis songs on the guitar for him. Thomas was very, very tired from that endless work, but he came to love that cub as if it was his own baby. And the cub thrived, means it did really well. It grew really good. The tiny bear became the center of Thomas's life, but he missed his own family at home. His partner Daniela and her 5-year-old son Sylvester, they missed him too, but they felt very proud of him. They visited Thomas every day, and on Christmas Eve, they arrived with a special dinner, presents, and even a beautifully decorated tree. Their love helped to keep Thomas's spirit up. Finally, when the cub was 32 days old, Thomas decided it was time to give him a permanent name. To Thomas, the cub just looked like a Knut, and so Knut it was. So there's Thomas and Knut. Thomas and Andre used their expert knowledge about polar bears to take good care of Knut. When Knut outgrew his incubator, they built a wooden sleeping box for him that was the same size as a mother bear's den, about as big as a very large toy chest. They kept the room dark and warm since polar bear cubs don't leave their den and don't experience bright light or cold until they are almost 3 months old, and because mother bears stay by their cub's side until that age. Thomas stayed with Knut almost every moment. In fact, Thomas only left the zoo for the first time when Knut was 4 months old, and then just for 3 days. Meanwhile, Knut already had thousands of friends outside the zoo. The people of Berlin and soon all of Germany fell in love with Eiser baby Knut and his foster father Thomas. They were eager to visit Knut at the zoo, but his keepers felt that Knut was still too young to appear in public. Look at Knut has stuffed animals. Here's Knut here, and here's a stuffed animal, and there's a stuffed animal. So they gave him little friends to play with, and he's got a fur rug that he's sleeping on. So cute. By the time Knut was ready to move to his sleeping box, he was strong enough to pull himself along with his front legs. He already loved to tussle with his stuffed animals or his blanket. A month later, he took his first wobbly steps on all 4 paws. A week after that, he had his first meal of milk with a bit of kitten food mixed in it from a bowl. He looks like a sloppy eater, doesn't he? Look at it's all over his nose. Ugh. Thomas and Andre laughed as most of the food ended up on Knut's fur and on the floor, and very little of it ended up inside Knut. But he certainly enjoyed it, and after that, Knut had his first bath in a small bathtub. He enjoyed that too. For Knut, every activity is a chance to wrestle, pounce, and play. We know what pounce means because that was the word of the day. On a warm day in March, when Knut was 3 months old, Thomas led him outdoors for the first time. Knut excitedly explored every corner of the small play area, but he never strayed far from Thomas. In the sandbox, Knut made 2 discoveries. 1, that sand is not good to eat. And 2, that sand is great fun to roll around in. When he shook out his fur, sand flew everywhere. For Thomas, raising Knut has been very rewarding, but it isn't always easy. One night, Knut climbed out of his sleeping box and awoke Thomas by pouncing on his head. It was the first time that Knut had climbed out of his box on his own. After that, Thomas made sure to close the sleeping box at night. Knut sometimes shows his affection for Thomas by pulling hard on his hair. Thomas lets Knut know that he prefers when Knut licks his face or just nuzzles him, nose to nose, in a friendly polar bear style greeting. I don't think I'd want a big old bear pouncing on me, because he's going to grow, and if you keep letting him pounce, he's going to pounce when he's too big, and he's going to hurt you. Finally, the keepers decided that Knut was strong and healthy enough to be viewed by the zoo visitors. They announced that on March 23rd, Knut and Thomas would appear in public for 2 hours. Then, a week before the big day, a newspaper reported one man's comments that Knut should not have been rescued after his mother rejected him, because in the wild, a cub would not have been rescued. Knut's fans were shocked. People all over Germany spoke up in support for Knut, Thomas, and the Zoo Berlin. News of the man's statement and the public's strong reaction against it quickly spread around the world. Suddenly, Knut was an international celebrity. That means everybody wanted to see him. Thousands of Knut admirers streamed into the zoo the morning of March 23rd. Almost 500 journalists. Those are people that are going to write stories about him, including camera crews from hundreds of television stations, arrived to report on Knut's first public appearance. There were reporters and visitors from places as far away as Canada, Colombia, Pakistan, Japan, New Zealand, and when Thomas and Knut stepped out onto the enclosure, the crowd cheered as if Knut was a movie star. He kind of looks like he's a movie star, doesn't he? Look at him standing there. Take my picture. Take my picture. Maybe you want this side. Maybe I look better over here. Doesn't he look cute? I will finish reading this story tomorrow. We'll find out what happens with Knut. I hope everything turns out okay. Don't you? Yeah. Okay. Next up is calendar. So get your calendars out.